masculine and feminine version of words. I remember learning French in junior high. And gender is everywhere, from the names we give ships to why we call someone an actor versus an actress, and why men are almost always paid more than women, even if a woman is more famous. Gender is everywhere. It's even in the words we speak. Why we call a woman hysterical for knowing what she wants and expressing anger, while if a man does that, he's considered a fireball. America, especially, is one of the most racist, homophobic, sexist, xenophobic countries in the world. I did a Google search last week. What statistic out of all the countries in the world, where is America? They're always on the lowest 10 countries for sexism, homophobia, racism. I mean, it's safer to be trans in Canada than it is in America. There are countries like Greenland, Norway, and Brussels that are 10 times as safe than America. America produces 3 times the mass shooters, and 53% of them are white. I'd say 3 out of 4 of them are white supremacists. And the violence in our country, 87% comes from the far right. 13% comes from the left. So the majority of violence, almost 8 times the amount of violence, comes from the conservative religious side of the political sphere. So anyone who says that religion brings peace has no clue what they're talking about. Religion has never brought peace, ever. Not the right kind of peace. And a lot of the peace we've had in history is because the religious people killed off the people who wouldn't become religious so they could have peace. And that's how a lot of Christianity got brought to different continents. You convert or you die, which is terrible. And it never goes away. I mean, racism never dies. It just changes clothing, chooses a new symbol and a new flag, and they just adapt. Racism will never die. It just evolves. They stop wearing white hoods. They start wearing Make America Great Again. In probably 10 years, they'll come up with a new slogan that sounds racially provocative, and people will support it because they have no intention of educating themselves. And the more educated you are, the less likely you are to be a conservative Republican. And even in church, there is such, and I've been in 7 churches and 3 denominations, there's so much upheaval. There's no unity, not really. When 1/3 of the church really obeys the rules, wants what's best in the religious, racist type of way, and wants to at least uphold the Bible, and 2/3 of the church wants someone who isn't a qualified preacher or someone who is going to completely run the niche of denomination they're in, and basically drives out the 1/3 because they won't vote the right way. And when I mean the right way, I mean the popular way. You have a problem. I mean, in all 7 churches I ever went to, They tore themselves apart because they couldn't just decide and agree on the right floor color for carpet. 5 of them ripped each other apart due to you needed a 80% quorum to hire a preacher. And because 1/3 of the church wouldn't agree with someone who wasn't qualified, the church tore itself apart and basically drove out the people who were trying to uphold the rules of what you have to meet in order to be considered for a leadership role. They would tear each other apart. And there is no unity in religion. Just because a church gets along doesn't mean they like each other, and it doesn't mean they respect each other. If a church is unified from the churches I've been to, they cloak their unity in order to get what they want. The end justifies the means. They work together to get the outcome they want. And the only reason they don't have unity is if they're not going to get something that they want out of it, so it's not worth just keeping quiet and voting the way that would get you what you want. And I've been to so many churches that it's like a power vacuum. And it's not a good kind. It's not a good thing either. Church people can say all they want, that men and women are equal. But if the leaders who are, at least in the churches I've been into, always white males, if they won't do the job the female does 100% of the time, unpaid, you're not equal. I mean, if a pastor, a deacon, an elder won't set up the potluck and never does it, never does any feminine task, you're not equal. You can't be equal, because if you wouldn't gladly do the job that the other group is doing without pay, with barely a thanks, if you wouldn't do it and you see it as less than or something that isn't a masculine job, you're not equal. You're superior. And that's not a good thing at all. I grew up in churches where it was considered a judgment from God if a woman was in charge. That's how my family looked at every female leader in world history. God was punishing a country or a group if a woman was in charge. From Queen Elizabeth to Victoria, Margaret Thatcher. My religion believed that if a woman was in charge, it was a judgment because there was no masculine alpha male to be in charge. I've had women, especially my own mother, tell me that it is a sin and a grievous thing to endure hearing a woman speak in church. You cannot say with a straight face, with integrity, that men and women are equal in a religion when men wouldn't do what they deem feminine jobs and the women can't do the men's job. It's not that they won't, that they choose not to. They have no chance to do it. It's like there's an invisible rule that says if you don't have a penis, you can't even be considered. And it's not equality. God, if you believe in God, and even if God sees men and women equal in Christianity, the men don't see women as equal. Because once a man becomes the age of 16 or older, women can't teach them because they consider men 16 or older to be off limits to female teachers. And the only time I ever saw a woman in a position of senior leadership a music minister that was a woman. She was there for a year, and then they fired her. And it wasn't because she was sick. It wasn't because she was bad at her job. It was because she didn't have a male private part. She was the wrong gender. And this is how deep the sexism and misogyny goes. You can be the best person for the job. You can have a degree in music history, and orchestra. You can be the most talented and best person for a role and a job. You won't even be considered or even interviewed. You won't even have your resume put anywhere but in the trash because you're a woman. This is the kind of people that probably voted for Trump. You cannot say you're not a racist and vote for Trump. The platform that supports Trump is an enemy to equality, females, trans people, undocumented visitors, undocumented taxpayers, African Americans. I mean, any group that isn't white and privileged, usually male, is a threat to the kind of support Trump has. And as long as we view women as an egregious thing to be endured and kept silent, we don't deserve anyone better than Trump. If that's how you treat women, we don't deserve a decent leader. If you can't even treat women with respect, not because they're women, not because they're someone's dog,